Hello, welcome to the first ever episode of Ms. McLaughlin Writes. The point of Ms. McLaughlin Writes is pretty simple. It's to get us writing. A lot of times we write as an escape or we write to reflect on our day. And so I was thinking we could write together in this time and space. And I was going to be supplying some creative and some reflective prompts. I was going to share them with you. We could do a little bit of writing together, and hopefully we could work together to fill up our writer's notebooks. So first things first, I'm Ms. McLaughlin, and one of the first things I love to do when I introduce myself is say that I'm a total book nerd. So I want to share with you what I just finished reading. I just finished reading this amazing graphic novel by George Takei from Star Trek fame, and it talks about his true story of being in the Japanese internment camps. This was an absolutely riveting story. There's some of the artwork inside, and highly recommend it if you're looking for your next great read. If you want to know other things that I've just frequently or previously read, you take a look. Oh, right here. This is my stack of stuff I've read, and this will be joining that stack shortly. So let's jump into journaling and notebooks. So what I want you to do is just look around the house anywhere you can find a notebook. If you can't find a notebook, get a bunch of loose leaf or paper, staple it together, and that becomes your writer's notebook. I just happened to have found this hiding in one of my cabinets here at home, and I use this in two ways. From the front side, I give sort of a day-to-day listing of the stuff I did that day, because we're kind of an unusual time, and it's interesting to keep track of what my day looks like. And then from the back part, from the back of the book, I actually start writing all of my creative ideas and my journaling. So I'm kind of using it in two ways. From this side, it's what I've been doing on a day-to-day basis, and then this side is kind of my more reflective journaling. So I encourage you to track down a notebook like this one or to make one so you can have one place to store all of your writing. That's always a great idea when it comes to having a writer's notebook. Okay, so let's jump into today's prompt. It's kind of like a get to know you, get to know yourself kind of prompt. And I'm sure you guys have seen these massive photographs taken of icebergs, where the iceberg is just a small fragment on top. But when they do sort of a cut scene to what's below, the mass of the iceberg is underneath. And it's often said that people are like icebergs, meaning that sometimes all you can see is that little bit on the surface, the visual stuff, the physical stuff that you can see. But actually, the most important structural stuff is what's underneath the surface. That's the mass of a person, is the stuff that you can't see, that's hidden below the surface. So for today's writing prompt, I'm going to ask you to think of yourself as an iceberg. So when you look at yourself, when you reflect on yourself, what are some of the things people might say about you based on the surface things, based on your appearance, based on your words or actions, your reputation? What are some of those words and phrases and ideas? Below the surface, I want you to think of the sort of unseen things about you, the deeper, more structural and important things to who you are as a person. So what are some of your accomplishments? What are the things that you're really proud of? What are your passions and hobbies? Where do you spend your time? Your family, tell me about your family. Talk about your family. What are your beliefs and values? What are the things that you hold really near and dear to your heart? What are important relationships that you have? What are some people or things that you love? What are some treasured objects or people in your life? What is an important part of your history that makes you unique in who you are? What are some memories that you think are important? Or anything else that you think is a really essential part of who you are as a person that everybody might not get a chance to see because it's kind of hidden below the surface. So you can go about this a couple different ways. You can sketch out an iceberg in your notebook if you want, kind of roughly around this shape. Or if you have a printer, down below, I'm going to put a PDF of this particular visual, which is kind of like a fill in the blank iceberg. So in the top left-hand corner, you're going to put the iceberg of and fill in your name with the blank. And then above the surface, you're going to write down all of those sort of visual things, the assumptions people have about you, correct or incorrect. What are the things that they just know that are surface things? And then down below, I want you to fill that space with all of the other really more important stuff, the structural stuff that defines who you are as a person. Now, I want to give you an example of what this looks like. And because we're writing together, I started my example already to share with you. So here's my example. And I did this of me in high school. because I kind of think that right now, I'm probably as an adult, I'm much more of an open book. And I thought it'd be more interesting to do this of me when I was in high school. But I want you to do it for who you are right now. So when we take a look at the stuff above the surface, these are the things that people just kind of like assumed or knew about me based on the information I presented them. So first, that I was a plastic. If you don't know what that word means, you need to go and watch Mean Girls, the best movie ever. Basically, it meant that in high school, I was sort of, I was a girl that looked a lot like the other girls, was probably assumed to be a little bit more surface thinking and self-obsessed. I was probably seen to be more of a follower or a little bit of a people pleaser. I didn't like people not liking me. To be honest, I still really don't. That's something I struggle with. I was well dressed. I had a nice house. I was okay, but not overly interested in school. And so when people just kind of thought about me based on the surface information that was presented, that might have been some of the assumptions they have. But you can see I've kind of drawn arrows down below to expand on these ideas. So while I was, yeah, a follower and a people pleaser, I was also a leader. I was very community oriented. I had lifelong participation in Girl Guides, which meant that I had to act in a leadership capacity and I had to serve my community. I was okay, but not overly interested in school. Well, maybe. But truthfully, I was a secret reader. I loved reading books when I was in high school. People would never have guessed that I read books when I was in high school. And to be honest, I cared a lot about school. I cried when I got a bad mark, and to me, a bad mark was anything below probably a 70. Well-dressed from a nice house, yeah, but it was a typical middle-class family. We had enough for now, but there definitely wasn't any money in the bank for university or college. If I wanted to do that, I did it on my own. I had to do it pretty much on my own. And in terms of being plastic, to be honest, that might have been the case. I was concerned with my appearance. It was high school, but I was also, I really enjoyed, sorry, I'm trying to line up. I really enjoyed camping in the outdoors. I could set up a tent by myself. I could start a fire. So I was pretty proficient in the outdoors. I wasn't like a city slicker city girl. And then all around the outside, I wrote some other words or ideas that I thought were really important to me at this time. So I was a book lover. I was empathetic. I was highly in tune with people's emotions, and I felt their emotions. I was creative. I loved to make things and to do things. I was curious. I was an outdoors person. I hiked. I camped with my family. I participated in Girl Guides. I worked as a camp counselor for 2 summers. I was a leader. I had to be a leader in Girl Guides and camp counselor, which is kind of different than what people assumed me in school as being a follower. I was also a team player. A lot of the things I wanted to do as a person, and I like to do as a person, involved being part of a team. I loved fashion and clothes. That's probably pretty accurate based on some assumptions. I was a learner. I was a camper. I was a writer, and I loved working with kids. And what I find interesting is when I look at all of these words that I would have used to describe myself in high school, they actually became a big part of what I do as a profession. I'm a teacher. So I think it's interesting that as a teacher, when I look back on this, that all of these things that I was really passionate about ended up becoming a huge part of who I was as an adult in my adult life. Okay, so that's your first writing task. I want you to grab your writer's notebook, find an empty page, sketch out an empty iceberg, or print off the one on the internet. And above the surface, I want you to sort of populate it with surface level words or phrases, assumptions people have about you as a person. And then below the surface, I want you to tell me the true story of the structure of who you are. What are the things that are foundational, that are important? What is the mass of who you are as a person? You can write, you can sketch, you can draw little pictures or scenes. It can be sentences, phrases, words. It's completely up to you. It's your writer's notebook. Write in a way that feels comfortable for you. You can see I added some pictures to mine. They weren't fantastic, but it doesn't matter. There's no judgment. It's a writer's notebook. Everything's awesome. Okay, that's your task for today. Also going to do a quick reminder that I'm also going to be posting a lot of these prompts over on my my blog, my website, and I'll just put the address to that down below, or I'll also put it like, I don't know, up here. I'll figure out how to like insert things and put it up here so you can go there as well. So if this is the first of many prompts and you're joining us a little later, you can go to the website and see them all there, and I'll also curate them here on YouTube as a playlist. Can't wait to see what you come up with. I look forward to seeing you in our next Write with Miss McLaughlin.